A very good day to you. I am Howard Feldman. This is your Synthesis podcast. Joining me today is Howard Sackstein. He is the non-executive chairman of the South African Jewish Report. He is a businessman, a lawyer by trade. He is in communication and certainly has an eye on many different parts of South African society as well as around the world. And it is a great pleasure to welcome him to today's Synthesis podcast. Howard Sackstein, how are you?
Good, Howard. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. So you and I chat on my radio show every week, and I always find that some of the lessons and some of the things that we talk about would be very valuable for people if we could perhaps distill them and talk about some of the lessons, some of the things that insights that you make along the way. So lockdown, you've taken lockdown very, very seriously. Your parents are older. You, from day one, have been very, very strict around lockdown. Generally are a very social person. You love people. You're out and about all the time. You love eating at restaurants. But you've actually made lockdown work for yourself in a very different way. Take us through that process.
Well, I think before lockdown, my life consisted of people, restaurants, and travel. 76 countries, eating in restaurants probably 10 times a week, seeing literally hundreds of people every week. I'm the most sociable human being you've ever met. And so I feel that almost COVID attacked me personally. Every element of my life that I held important, it somehow went after. And that having been said, now 5 months into it, because this week will be 5 months that I haven't gone into the office, 5 months I haven't gone into a shop, and I've adapted. And the two things that really irritate me are the words, the new normal and these unprecedented times. Because I think about the new normal, there is no such thing as normal about the way we're currently existing. We shouldn't accept it as normal. We have to recognize it as a complete abomination, an aberration to our normal lives. And we will in some way get back to a sense of normality over time. This is our World War II. This is the time period where we have to make a sacrifice for the safety of ourselves and the people around us, for our family. And then, because we've made that sacrifice, we can go back to a sense of normality. So it doesn't mean to say that things won't change over this period. And we won't go back to exactly the way we were before. But it's not normal. It's okay to feel that it's not normal. It's okay to feel that these are weird and bizarre times and your life and your emotional and your physical state is different. It's absolutely okay to feel all of that because this is not the new normal. That's element number one. And element number two is we talk about unprecedented times, but every time is an unprecedented time. We're not repeating our past. We're not repeating history. We're going through a process where we're evolving as people. We're living through wars. We're living through diseases. We're living through peace times. Every moment of our life is absolutely unique. And therefore, it is unprecedented because every moment has been unprecedented. I think the amazing thing is last year, Yuval Harari, when he published 21 Questions for the 21st Century, one of the things he said, all of human history has been characterized by three things: war, disease, and poverty. And we've conquered all of them. Now, a few months later, we may have realized that maybe we haven't really conquered disease that much. But in comparison to where we were 100 years ago, in the beginning of 1900, you know what the average age a person lived to? 56.
I'm not a thing to tell somebody on their birthday.
No, but that was 120 years ago. And right, today, absolutely. As tragic as the process we're going through and the fact that there are people ill and there are people with diseases, we have really conquered much of disease in our society. We've conquered much of poverty, the number of people starving or surviving on less than $1 a day. We've really solved that. Wars, we've actually never been more at peace as a society than we are today. So we can't lose sight of the fact that there are little blips upon the road. but it is a road towards progress into a better society, and we just can't lose sight of that.
Absolutely. So it's not unprecedented because we have lived through and we will continue to live through unique experiences. It's not a new normal because there's nothing normal about it. But it does take a certain amount of courage and innovation to make the best out of very difficult situation that we are living in. And as you said, it's the Second World War. It's our Second World War. And I kept thinking of the comments, I think it was during the First World War, where they said our boys will be home by Christmas. And everybody thinking that this was just going to be a very short period. We went into lockdown for 3 weeks. We are now, as you said, 5 months later with very little sign that this is going to be over soon. So the aspect of saying, okay, recognizing that this is not normal, recognizing how difficult this is, but still making the time count to the best of our ability is something that I believe you've adopted fairly uniquely.
So, at the start of the lockdown period, I had this vision. I was going to have time to watch Netflix and read books. This was like my fantasy. I was actually quite looking forward to it. And I thought, yeah, it may be 3 weeks, it may be 3 months, but I'm going to catch up on all of these things. Well, there's a saying that says, man plans and God laughs. And boy, did he laugh at me, because I've genuinely never been busier than I've been in lockdown. And one of the things that happened was, as chairperson of the South African Jewish Report, we thought, well, how do we stay relevant during this period? And we said, well, why don't we start a webinar? Or the idea was one single webinar to begin with. Let's get some doctors. Everyone on television was talking about the virus, but no one was giving practical physical advice. When you go out shopping, what do you do with your shoes? Do you wash down your material? What vitamins should I be taking? No one was doing that. And we said, well, let's have a webinar, get some doctors or psychologists, and let's help people through the process. Well, the first one, we didn't think we'd get too many people watching. We thought a few hundred. Well, a few thousand arrived. And the second one, more people arrived. And so this week, we'll in fact have our 43rd webinar during lockdown. And we've covered information, education, and entertainment. And we've created, amongst a group of volunteers, and literally a small group of 2, 3, 4 volunteers, we've created an online Zoom television channel. 43 broadcasts later, and we've had people like Brian Habana on sports, and we've had Wade van Niekerk talking us through his Olympic win. We've had psychologists and nutritionists and exercise gurus. We've helped people. We've raised literally millions and millions of rands for charity, for people looking after the needy, feeding people in the townships. We've raised millions of rands for them through what we've done. Saturday night, we had Netflix and chill. We explained to people what they should be watching on Netflix, what books they should be reading, what whiskeys they should be having, should they be able to get their hands on the whiskey at this point in time. But we've created almost a town square. And it's a place where you can go to your town square. We leave the chat on and we encourage people to chat to each other. And during the course of a 2 or 3 hour webinar, thousands and thousands of messages get exchanged between people. People are interacting with each other. During, for example, we had a session on second passports. I know a lot of South Africans are interested. Can they get a second passport? It helps their travel get so much easier. Mm-hmm. We had 350 questions asked during a single webinar. So we've created this town square where there's a busker busy performing, there's someone making a speech, there's a discussion happening across a virtual coffee table, but we've created community, a place where people can come, interact, and recreate their lives in a digital format. And that's been probably the most exciting thing we could ever do, because on some of these webinars, I interviewed Simon Sinek. We had 34,500 people watching. We did a toast to the people of South Africa, and we had Goldfish coming from America, and Lyra, who was in Africa, and Majosi, and PJ Powers, and we had Loyisa Gola and other comedians. Over 30,000 people watching that. and commenting. And like, that's the part that we love. The comments are the thing that we love most of all. And some people are obnoxious because they're obnoxious in real life. And some people are funny because they're funny in real life. And some people don't have a clue what's happening, but that's just a reflection of exactly who they are. So we have to take those elements from our real life, turn them for a short period of time into a digital format. And this is part of what we're doing here today as well. And, we have to find those elements. We spoke about earlier, I'm a sociable human being. Well, that means a few times a week, I'm having a whiskey with friends on Zoom. And we're sitting in our own living rooms, and whether we're having a whiskey together or having a dinner together or ordering takeouts from the same restaurant and having a meal as we would have from the same restaurant, talking about the food, criticizing the service, even though it's our own service. But we're creating those online, offline experiences. And just one example I want to give you. So one of the things I do is run a big charity event called the Jewish Achiever Awards. You've been involved in that as well. And we thought, well, how do we take an award ceremony and turn it into something special online? And what we're going to do is creating, once again, an online, offline experience. You'll watch the awards digitally online rather than sitting in the Sanford Convention Center. But if you've bought a table, or if you're one of our sponsors' guests, you're going to receive a gourmet hamper meal in your home. And it's going to come with your cocktails that you would have drunk. And it's going to come with placemats and candles for your table. Yeah. And it's going to be a proper gourmet meal that you're going to have to recreate that experience in your own home that you would have had together with a group of people. And you'll still be able to sit at a virtual table with your friends, comment about what's happening around as you lean over, have your whiskey on the red carpet. We're going to ask people to actually dress up, drink the cocktails that we send to them in their home, take a selfie, post it online, create a virtual environment for all of these things. And, one of the great advantages is because of lockdown, people have time and people are accessible. So people who will tell you, I'll have a meeting with you in 6 months' time, well, they're available tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
And that means our entertainment can come from overseas. Our MCs can come from overseas. People will watch this in London and New York and Buenos Aires, because that's the new world that we're busy creating here.
So it's phenomenal, and it requires an incredible amount of imagination and courage, because it's so much easier to say, well, okay, so the Jewish Achievers, as the example that you're giving, it's very difficult to have that amount of people. You can't. So maybe let's just wait until this is all over. But to take the courage, to have the courage to plan something like this that has not been done before, to my knowledge, where you're going to create virtual tables and interaction and the red carpet, it could easily go wrong. So, and whereas I don't think it will, because certainly you've been at this for a while and I've seen the events that you put together, so I don't doubt that, but it really does take chutzpah. And do you think that speaking a bit broader and speaking to companies and speaking to financial institutions, charities, people at home, schools, do you think that that's what the secret ingredient here might be, is chutzpah, is don't stop being curtailed by that which you think you need to be curtailed by?
Yeah, I think lesson number one is don't think, let's wait for this to be over. There's no reason to wait. Let's just find a different way to make it work in the current situation. That's number one. Number two is there's a huge competition out there at the moment for eyeballs. Should someone be watching this podcast or another one of the 20 or 30 podcasts that someone has sent me for today? Be creative in what you're doing. Listening to the same people drag on over and over again about the same. There's no reason for anyone to select you over and above everything else. How are you going to make it special and unique and creative and engaging? Those are the key questions. And that's really, I think, where companies that are innovative will really go to the fore. I've turned into some webinars, and the amazing thing is you turn off your camera and you walk away. Or you just log out and no one notices or cares. You can't do that in a boardroom. You can't do that in a meeting. So the question you're going to have to ask as a business is, what am I going to do to keep the attention of the people? What's going to be special, unique about the people who are attending my function online, to make sure that they actually stay, that they keep their camera on, that they keep engaged, that they're asking questions. So one of the things we do a lot on Zoom is, in fact, polling. We ask people questions all the time. We give the results and we discuss the results. And amazing, you'll find that 60, 70, 80% of people who are on a Zoom will actually participate in the poll. It's just one more way. Or people ask questions through the Q&A section. Get them to vote up or vote down questions of what they think is really important to their own lives. One of the things that we're doing as well is many of the Zooms are flat. It's you and me talking to each other. So we've got a video editor and we're cutting little documentaries and snippets and we're putting them in and putting in a little bit of humor along the way and making sure that we almost turn in
attention.
Exactly. You have to think almost of things like Zoom, which we're all using in our own businesses, but you have to think of it almost as a television broadcast. And you have to make it fun and sexy and entertaining.
Well, it was interesting because a friend of mine told me the other day that he was actually on 2 different Zoom meetings, or I mean, there were these events. He was on 2 different ones, both upstairs, one on his computer, one on his phone, and he went downstairs to eat supper with his family. And I thought, oh my word, if only the people knew who were putting this together that he was there just to be polite, but actually wasn't engaged in either one of them. That's exactly what your message is. You have to find ways to keep people engaged and involved. Otherwise, it just defeats the purpose. It's not about the numbers. It's about the engagement, and it's about having people come back. And I think that's the kind of thing that you've done very, very well, is you engage with people and make them come back for the next thing.
Yeah. And, you know, if someone's camera's off on a Zoom, I think they're one of 2 options. They've either gone to sleep or they're naked. Those are the only 2 options.
And hopefully it's the latter, but okay, yeah.
So, and maybe they've gone to sleep naked and combined both of them.
It could be both, absolutely.
But ultimately in the entire thing, if they're not turning on their camera, they're not engaged with you. So make sure that there's a reason for them to actually turn on and continue to speaking. This is a conversation. It's not a monologue.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this then, is I think you've given some tremendous amount of ideas, thoughts, and input into the general engagement. But let's just say take, for example, a sales team who would normally be going to go out for lunch with their clients, would be popping in for a coffee, seeing what they need. Everything changes around them as well.
Sure. And there are a lot of people who still believe that you have to stare someone straight into the eyes and know what they're thinking before you can do a deal with them. And that's quite problematic at this point in time. In fact, in my real life business, which is in the telecom sphere, we had some customers a few weeks ago who said, well, if you want to do this deal, you come to our offices and you sit in our boardroom. And my response to the staff is, well, it's your choice if you want the deal, but I would never, ever criticize you or do anything, encourage you to put your own life and safety in danger in order to do a deal. It's just not worth it. Your health and safety is the most important thing that you can do. But, you know, there are great ways to do it. If you're used to taking a client out for lunch, send over a lunch during your Zoom. Send over a cup of coffee. Do something engaging. Just because we're not physically present in the room doesn't mean to say that I'm not having a real connection with you, Howard, at this very moment, staring at you at the screen, speaking to you, looking at you in your eyes. It's still the same relationship. I can't see you. I can't touch you. I can't shake your hands. But, you know, that's a gift to you because I'm doing it for your own health. But it doesn't mean to say that our relationship is any different just because I'm looking at you at the screen.
It's just got to change for now. And that's really what you're saying. But you can't, resist the change, and you can't just sit by until it's all over. You've got to innovate, and you've got to find different ways in the meantime.
Look, if you're not innovating at this point in time, you're going to die. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely true.
Any company, you cannot presume. And I had a Zoom session yesterday with a company, and they were saying, well, in order to continue what we're doing and we're busing people, we need twice the number of buses and twice the number or 3 times the number of facilities. And I was saying, guys, you're trying to fit the old world into the current situation. They don't actually mesh anymore. There's some things that are fundamentally changing, and you have to recognize where you change, and you need to change your business model to fit in. And the one business model that we've been so successful in changing is a business model of education. Because what we've actually succeeded during COVID to do is we've separated location from education. Your kid doesn't have to be sitting at school in order to receive education. And that means, why should you actually have to be sitting in Boston to go to Harvard University? Why can't you be?
That's going to be the big trend, because suddenly you could be educated from everywhere at any institution.
And not only that, there's a struggle for talent. If you have the best teacher in the world able to deliver a lecture or a classroom discussion, you don't need all the other teachers, or all the other teachers become tutors to help you along. But the actual delivery of material is available to you by the best educationalists in the world. And so by separating location and education, we fundamentally change the way we think about things. And we fundamentally change the cost structures that are involved in things like education. And so you have to be thinking about your own business now and the business model that you had, and say, how has that now fundamentally changed because we've gotten more used to technology? We clearly won't be happy. You in a previous life used to jump on airplanes every 10 minutes and fly to a different country.
Look who's talking, yes.
This is true, but you were traveling for business because you believed you had to be physically 100%. Present in a meeting. And now people are comfortable with the fact that you don't really have to physically be there. And that's probably going to affect the airline industry, the hotel industry, the business travel industry. But it's probably not going to affect the fact that you would love to actually be in Mykonos at this very moment on the beach. Leisure travel, there's almost this pent-up frustration in people that the moment things open up, you want to be, the first place you want to be is in the Kruger Park. The second place you want to jump on a plane and be on the beach in Tel Aviv or in Greece or in Turkey. That's part of the, I was supposed to be at the Olympics right now. I hope that they aren't cancelled, and in 2021 I can have the experience I should be having right now. But there are elements that will change. Our desire to jump on a plane to get to a business meeting when we can do it in an hour over Zoom rather than 3 days of flying, exhaustion, jet lag. I think that we've realized that our lives have changed a little.
So many lessons. And I think the important thing here is, and we don't have a lot of time, but I think the important thing is to just keep innovating, just keep finding different ways and thinking ahead and doing exactly what you're saying, to say, well, what is going to change in the industry that I'm involved with? I heard a very interesting talk by Michael Jordan the other day, where he spoke about the fact that the banks that were successful were sometimes successful because of the location, because they were in that street on that corner. Well, all of that changed. That's already changed. We're seeing this in the media space. We're seeing it in every space. It was happening anyway. What COVID seems to have done is pushed that even further and taught us other lessons that we are going to need to learn. So coming out of lockdown, and let's hope it's obviously sooner than later, what do you see keeping and what do you see throwing away in your own environment and in your own experience?
So I think the interconnectedness of humanity we're going to keep. The fact that I'm Zooming with people all over the world, that my conversations are in fact longer and deeper and more meaningful because I have some time, that's something that I hope I can maintain going forward. But there's no doubt I'm missing people every day. And
the physical scene, as you say, the shaking hand, putting an arm on somebody's arm, just that physical connection is what you miss.
but
Certainly what
now,
I miss.
but given that someone I mentioned earlier that I used to eat in 10 restaurants a week, and I posed to friends the question the other day: if we could say you had a 24-hour break from COVID, you had no chance of infection, you could go out to any restaurant you wanted, do anything, what would you do? And no one could really answer the question.
As you were asking it, I was thinking, I don't know what I would do. I would want to get together, not necessarily at a restaurant, but with friends or family I haven't seen for a while, where we can actually just be in each other's company, I think.
Yeah, but the things that we thought were important, how long were you on the waiting list to get into this restaurant? Can't even remember the names of the restaurants.
Yeah.
So I think there's a reprioritization in our own lives. I think that we almost substituted things like restaurants for the way that we could actually had an excuse to see people interact with people. Well, we now realize it's the people that's the important, not the location that we do it. And we continue. So I found during this period that relationships with some people are much stronger, and some people I haven't heard from in 5 months.
Amazing.
Well, I'm not sure in month number 6 I want to hear from them, or in month number 12. If I haven't heard from them now, they're not that important in my life. So we do all of this prioritization ourselves, but yeah, I'm longing for that human contact. I'm longing to substitute, but I'm also realizing that time is important, and the fact that we have some time to play now is one of the greatest gifts that I think we could ever have been given.
And it's the people that appreciate the gift, and companies, organizations, schools who appreciate this gift and use that time, that I believe are going to thrive, not only now, but even afterwards. Howard Sackstein, thank you for your wisdom. Keep doing the amazing work that you are doing. You're an absolute inspiration. And I certainly hope that our subscribers will be inspired by this talk, and we'll get you back again after lockdown and do a bit of an assessment as to what stayed and what went. I'm Howard Feldman. This is the Synthesis Podcast. Have a good day.